I'm Crystal Collier, and today we're going to read the first chapter of Soulless. Woo! Isn't it pretty? This is book 2 in the Maiden of Time trilogy. So here we go. Predators and prey. Alexia's eyes snapped open, heart thundering. Well, she wasn't dead. Yet. Alexia uncurled stiff fingers from around her blanket and pressed further into her pillow. Caught somewhere between annoyed and relieved, she settled on grateful that she'd recovered enough to dream again, even if her nightmares always came true. She could still feel phantom fingers at the back of her skull, crushing her face into the pillow until she ceased to breathe. She shuddered. Lace curtains scattered shadow creatures across the wood floor, twisting them in the late summer breeze from an unlatched balcony door. Specters clawed at the pastel walls, up a bureau, and over a wardrobe of fashionable clothes for 1770. Costumes, facades, pretensions. She sat up in bed, the bed she'd used all 18 years of her life. Father slumbered at the other end of the too-empty estate, too far away to call for help. Father, whom she had never expected to see again. Father, who had begged her to abandon her true heritage. In this very bed, Alexia had witnessed death after death through her night terrors. She had hoped the dreams would cease for good now that she'd discovered the true extent of her gift, the ability to slow or freeze time. But wishing was futile. And now, according to the dream, she was going to die, but not if she could stop it. She searched for a weapon, her fingers scraping over a hairbrush, an unlit candle on the dressing table beside her bed. What she wouldn't give for a dagger! Ghostly light from the open balcony drew her gaze to the mirror and her evergreen eyes. She shivered. The reflection she recalled was that of a rat child, thin, sickly, sallow, revolting by all standards and befitting a horror story. Instead, flawless skin and ebony curls gleamed in the glass. It was part of being passionate, coming of age and maturing into an unnatural beauty. According to Chiron, their lack of beauty in childhood was a defense mechanism, a protection from humans who might otherwise take advantage of their young. It was during the moonless cycle following their 16th birthday that their gifts bloomed into existence, along with an exquisiteness no mortal could resist. The change had taken place 2 years ago, heralded by nightmares which warned Alexia of future deaths. Beauty had brought only misery. She bit back the memory of Roger Whittaker's hands on her, the crash of her skull against the wall as he attempted to take what she wouldn't willingly give, and when he failed, the forced betrothal that followed. She shook the memory away. Roger's attack proved that she'd never be able to live among the gentry as a baron's daughter, not with a passionate heritage. Instead, she had to survive a secret war long enough to marry Chiron, the leader of the passionate whom she'd chosen for herself, starting with finding a weapon. Father's pistols were housed only a few rooms over, but she knew from the nightmare she'd never make it that far. Ethereal light glinted across the brass door handle, metal because it deflected the passionate and burned their bare flesh, but not hers. That was what came of being half human. The door handle twisted. Her heart leapt. It could be Chiron, finally come after 3 days of absence. Since Father couldn't accept her choice of suitor, Chiron might merely be sneaking in to avoid conflict. But then, why would he use the door? Why not simply come through the balcony as he had so often done in the past? Because it wasn't Chiron. Her heart seized at the possibility she didn't want to consider, that it might be Sarah, her missing aunt, best friend and near sister. She forced her heart to slow, her mind to work. Surely it was a servant coming before dawn to clean the chamber pot or deliver fresh water. Except servants didn't move as silently as death. The door flew open, and a shadow reared out of the blackness. Alexia rolled away, determined to escape the murderer of her nightmare. Blankets snared her legs. The mattress dipped behind her under new weight. Material yanked tight against her neck. She gasped. Fingers knotted in her hair and wrenched her backwards. Alexia shrieked and her face slammed into a pillow. She thrashed and the pressure on the back of her head doubled. She tore at her captor's hands, digging her nails in. "I warned you!" High soprano cut through the pulse in her ears. "Die!" Alexia gasped, desperate for air. Instead, she sucked in suffocating cushion and cloth. Darkness crept over the corners of her consciousness, the inky silence of the nether realm. She was not ready to die, not when she had the power to escape, the power to stop time. She yanked the seconds to a halt, and an ache crawled up the back of her head like the burn of 100 ant bites. The cushion beneath her cheeks stiffened, solidifying into stone. Her attacker's panting slowed to a low-pitched hiss, and then there was silence, the silence of stopped time. Alexia turned her head and gasped, scraping her cheek on cotton granite. Air. It tasted like an old crypt and hung immobile, but she inhaled with force. Her head cleared enough to register the ripple of pain crushing through her skull. She slid out from under the child's grasp, her hair catching on immobile fingers. Sucking in a second breath, she whimpered at the lava eating through her brain. Chiron had warned her not to use her gift. She was not recovered enough, not yet. Alexia released the flow of seconds, and her assailant smacked against the headboard, cursing as Alexia tumbled to the floor, holding her head. Pounding dragged her down. Her brain blazed like a flaming knife had skimmed off a fresh layer of skin. 4 weeks of healing, 4 weeks of avoiding all thought, 4 weeks of dreamless sleep gone in an instant. She focused on breathing. In. Ignore the pain. Out. Let it go. Her knees shuddered as she lifted her forehead from the floorboards, her brain throbbing. Golden ringlets dripped down the child's shoulders. The large, cruel brown eyes glared above vibrant red lips in the portrait-perfect countenance of 13, a porcelain doll. The girl coiled on the edge of the bed, swathed in the rich folds of raven brocade, poised like a snake to strike. 2 years they'd known one another, and Belisa hadn't aged a day. "How do you do that?" Belisa's perfect mixture of soprano and terror slapped Alexia's ears. The child leapt. Alexia jumped, her heart hammering through her temples. The malevolent girl landed next to her, eyes no more than a hand's width away, consuming her in their earthy dark swells like midnight quicksand. Her cruel mouth twisted in a menacing scowl. The last time they had come face to face, Alexia had been in a race to save Aunt Sarah, whom Belisa had thrown to the Soulless. Every muscle tensed and Alexia's vision bled out red. She had never hated anyone so much as this girl. She balled her fists and swung at the selfish imp. Belisa leapt back. Alexia's knuckles grazed the girl's cheek, barely missing her. Nightmare pain shot down her neck. Her body was not ready to halt time, not ready to move, and she pushed it too far. Pain swallowed the world. She was falling into blackness. Her brow thumped on something solid, and she grunted. "Dear me, did you hurt yourself?" Belisa giggled. Alexia pressed her palms into the uneven timbers, trembling. "Stay away from me." Every word fired knives at the back of her eyes. Where was Chiron? Why would he allow this heartless, vile creature to come so close? The one who had almost killed her before. The one who had robbed her of Sarah. Belisa batted her eyelashes. "Why would I do that when you are so fun to taunt?" Alexia pushed herself up. Belisa could have easily ended her in the last minute, so why hadn't she? Surely she'd come to do more than deride her. But Alexia didn't want to play this game. "Go away, Belisa." The girl's sneer broadened, morphing her face from a porcelain doll to a bloodthirsty savage. "Is that it?" Near black eyes exacted hers from the shadows. He kept you because you are talented? Her lips pulled back in a vicious smile. How precious. How do you like being one of his pets? Tell me, is it... She looked Alexia up and down. Rewarding? Go back to your prison. The girl's grin widened. Oh, but Alexia, I left that place months ago. I've been here watching over your precious daddy and half-wit aunt. Alexia bit down against the pain in her head, her knuckles aching for how tightly they strained. Sarah had been everything to her, her only true confidant and bosom friend. The girl sniffed. Anyone cork-brained enough to marry one of the Soulless deserves their misery. Alexia swallowed the verbal slap. Belisa was right. Sarah had known John was one of the Soulless who could walk in daylight, known her fate would ultimately end in joining those empty creatures, in becoming one of them. John had seemed so above the Soulless, so rational and normal. But it had been an illusion. Sarah chose him. She chose John over a life with the passionate, and Alexia had only herself to blame. What do you want, Belisa? I want you dead! Then why have you not done it? The child had a much easier way of ending a life than smothering or talking Alexia to death. She shivered at the memory of toppling blindly down flights of stairs to the sound of Belisa's shriek. The girl sighed and frumpled into a seat next to her. Because I like you. Alexia blinked at her. Belisa's mouth tightened. I told you, he is mine. And I believed you. Belisa's eyes darkened. Why do you have to be so likable? I cannot even hate you for marrying him. Alexia startled. We're not married. You will be soon. Soon? Alexia straightened up. What did Belisa know? Had she come here to preempt the wedding? Was that why Chiron had been absent for 3 days, preparing for their union? A throat cleared from the doorway. They both turned. Starlight glistened across the worn leather of his boots and the gray of his suit coat, unbuttoned to reveal tan trousers, a matching long waistcoat, and a hint of white shirt. Ginger waves fell about his brow, shading the jagged white scar barbing from his right cheek to his chin. His skin held a luminescence that filled Alexia with awe, and his eyes, which left the clear coastal reefs at nightfall in envy, crashed soberly over Belisa. Dun dun dun. And that's it. I hope you'll pick up a copy and enjoy the book because it's awesome.